Good evening, guys. Welcome back to CSL. This is the grand finals. Good morning. I'm just so excited that I don't even know what time of day it is. I just want to watch me some Dota. We're here in beautiful Toronto today, downtown for the grand finals, and I could not be more excited. My name's Toffees. I'll be bringing you the action here all day, and I'm joined by my partner in crime for a long time now, Gorgon the Wonder Cow.
Yeah, it's great to be here for the CSL. Another year wrapping up, and of course, nobody would be here, not you, not me, not the players, if it weren't for Twitch. From PAX East to PAX West and all across the globe, they are the #1 community and streaming site for gamers. We've got a little plug for something that they're putting up that we think is pretty cool about Twitch Student, and I think we've got some information on that coming out.
Absolutely. Let's check it out. Well, those are some words from our sponsors, and we're glad to have you guys back here in the theater with Gorgon and myself. We're going to take a little bit of time to talk about what's going on today. It's going to be a long day of Dota, guys. We've got both semifinals, one after another. The winner of each best of 3 moves on to the grand final that we're going to be playing a little bit later here tonight. So, long game of Dota for the players. And the question, Gorgon, is do you think that that's going to come into play at all?
Yeah, definitely the players that are used to playing quote-unquote marathon days are going to have a better chance of making sure that their stamina is up, that they're paying attention. Obviously, we've all played 3, 6, 9 games in a day, and near the end of the day, it starts to slide. Now, it is worth mentioning that the 2 teams that we have playing first will have a little bit longer of a break before the finals.
That's true.
And that could actually come into play.
You got to sort of balance it out. Is sleeping in more important than having a long break? And we're going to see that in the games today. Now, the first match you guys are going to see is USC Long Beach versus University of Connecticut. Now, these are 2 teams with interesting stories and paths to the semifinals. A couple of them, Gorgon, are really outside of what we normally see in terms of the box. So let's start out with UConn and talk a little bit about their team. Have you anything interesting that you've seen so far regarding the team?
Well, coming from them is something that we do kind of want to take a look at is that they're largely upperclassmen, so they're a little more experienced in terms of their academic careers, but also probably their Dota time. And this is sort of a last chance to bring home a victory for CSL, for some of these guys, especially Ego and Bellicoso, right? Both seniors, they're both graduating. They're not going to have another opportunity. Of course, this is another team or a team, I guess, with a really abnormal odyssey into the CSL finals.
They had a strange trip here in a lot of different ways. So first off, one of the rules here is obviously your players have to attend the school, be part of the club. That doesn't necessarily mean you can't use subs or you can't change out some rosters. And the guys from UConn, from what I understand, talking to Melody, who is acting as their captain right now, were put together, sort of reestablished the team before playoffs and found a better fit for what their team synergy was and had great success. And I don't even think they dropped a game coming through the playoffs. So whatever this new synergy is pretty strong.
Yeah, they came through. They did not have very much experience together. They are arguably less experienced together than a lot of the pub stacks that we might see from players in CSL that play together just for fun. And yet they managed to drill their way all the way through the playoffs and get here.
Yeah.
That could end up working to their advantage. The teams are not going to have a lot of info on them.
Absolutely. So they're going to be, teams are playing against them a little bit in the dark, but the other side of the coin, we'll talk maybe a little more about this during the draft as well, is they also had a challenge because when we talk about coming a long way to play, every single member of Connecticut's team had to get their visa to play here because they're all students. So they had to go through the visaing process. In fact, I heard from the players that up to the day before they got on the plane to fly here, they hadn't fully been cleared on those visas. So they weren't even sure if they could make it. Village Fish, their support player, their 5 support,
The all-star support in real life.
hasn't been able to practice with the team for over a week because he's been stuck in New York waiting for the visas to go through. He sort of fell on the sword, I guess, and was the one to wait there to pick them up when they were processed. So that alone is sort of a problem for them. So they have a disadvantage that I guess they have an advantage that the other teams don't know about them, but a disadvantage in that they don't really know about themselves.
You come in with absolutely no preconceptions about how you need to play. It really allows you to focus on what do we feel comfortable with and what are our opponents doing, right? So they might be a little less prone to getting caught into draft traps because they're not going to be sucked into this metagame that they're really, because of their lack of practice together and because of their lack of experience, they are tabula rasa, as it were.
True.
They are ready to come in and make whatever they need to happen.
Absolutely. They got a long way to go there. On the opposite side, though, let's talk about their opponents. Long Beach is a team who also had some issues with getting players here in terms of visaing. In fact, so much so that they are playing, from what I understand, with a very tough support situation. You know any more about that?
Yeah, so they were unable to get a visa for one of their players. They have a player that they aren't necessarily used to playing with. I believe he's the roommate of the captain, Quan, and that's how they know him. That's how they ended up bringing him here. And that just reeks of desperation. But they found a support player.
I'll tell you what,
and my understanding is that he was a well-established Dota support player for his time in Dota, which just happens to have not been since like 6.8.3 or earlier.
Let's be real. I talked to him yesterday, and he said, Toppies, I haven't been on the game since they moved the Roche pit, to put that in perspective. So
and we were thinking, when we saw that conversation, we were like, oh, it's been like 3 months. That's not that big. You have to learn talents, and you know it'll be a rush, but you'll be able to catch up. And then he's like, No, I don't think you understand. Since they moved the Roche pit to the right-hand side of the Dyer side of the river, which is like a year and a half ago, that was a bit of a shock.
Absolutely. And I think the very interesting part for me is keep this in mind, guys. This is a big tournament, and the winning team gets $20,000 in scholarship, right? So if they win this, he essentially goes for like a perk of living with the captain is you get a $5,000 scholarship. So I don't know if that was on the roommate application initially.
Way better than my roommate.
My roommate just drank everything that I bought and ate all of my food. In this case, Quan just takes care of his people, apparently. So that'll be something to watch. Both of these teams coming in with a little bit of a disadvantage in their 5 support position. In Village Fish because he just couldn't play. And Aquilo because he didn't remember that he owned the game, I guess.
Well, you know, it's important to keep in mind that this kid is a sophomore, and we basically saw him quit Dota, it sounds like, about when he started college, which makes sense, right? You're a mechanical engineering sophomore. Maybe you don't have time for Dota anymore. Suddenly you've moved to school. But you make the time when there's a pretty significant potential scholarship on the line.
Right. So then you come in, well, and you know, he said, Toronto, I get to visit. Hopefully everything goes well. So I think that this has a double-edged sword, though, because while there's a disadvantage to having that player in that situation, it does alleviate a lot of the stress from the guys, right? Because in that context, you don't have to worry about what you're playing. You just sort of get to go out there, say, we're going to play our game to the best of our abilities, and then sort of see where that puts us.
Yeah, and you and I often talk about an enormous advantage that occurs in CSL when the players play to their comfort zones rather than trying to play heavily into the meta, rather than trying to play heavily into the mind games, just because of the vast skill differences that occur within teams and without them at CSL.
Absolutely.
So these teams that come in maybe a little bit less able to have the synergy that you would normally expect a team to have, that's going to be a serious disadvantage. But the advantage that brings is that they're forced to focus on their own game and not try to reach too far outside of their comfort zone.
Absolutely.
And that could end up playing to their advantage later on.
Definitely. Now, let's talk a little about the players while we have some time, I guess, here. We did have a chance to sit down with the teams and talk to them about what they do outside of Dota. And keep in mind, guys, this is the Collegiate Star League. These are college students.
Yeah.
A lot of them are graduating. They all have courses of study. So we sat down and got to know the teams a little bit in terms of what they're studying, how long they're going to be in the league. I thought it was pretty interesting. The one trend that I noticed ran through the entire process was the amount of engineering students that we have in this tournament right now.
Especially in the Dota teams. I'm not sure if it covers all of the esports, of which we have many, but you would maybe expect engineers to be more into Dota. It is a very tinker-heavy game.
Absolutely.
It is a very mechanically complicated game, and you would expect people that really like to break things down and then build them back up to be the sort of people attracted to Dota.
And now I will say the one thing that we found that was unique is most of the teams had a lot of engineers, but UConn brought a lot of finance and economics majors. So I don't know if maybe their mastery of finance and economics will help them in this game in terms of managing the gold net worth, but we'll see if there's a big difference between the engineer's approach to a finance approach.
UConn's got a philosophy senior, so if there's anybody who's ready to think non-linearly and really problem solve, it's going to be that guy, right?
Absolutely.
Bellicoso, we're looking at you.
We're watching you, Bellico. So let's talk a little bit about the draft so far, Gorgon, as we get into this. It's going very quickly. Right now we see a ban out. Okay. So with the bans right now, we have a pretty common first ban. That's the Monkey King. Nobody just wants to deal with him right now. He's such a difficult hero,
He's
so
the
aggressive.
most pick banned hero in professional Dota this patch, 705.
And no surprise, very overpowered. Warlock going to get banned as well by Cal State Long Beach. They know that that's another hero who has a lot of potential to control these fights, and they just don't want to let them do that. On the opposite side, UConn doesn't want to deal with the two heroes who are potentially the most annoying in the game. Nothing stops you from pushing quite like a coddle in a tree.
Yeah, we've actually seen in the playoffs quite a bit of coddle coming through. Some of the games that we didn't get to cast, some of the games that were cast by our friends over on the B casting team, Zingle, coming through as our B caster. But no, the Keeper Light made a big impact in some of the games that were not casted at all. I went back and looked at over all of the drafts through the bracket, and he showed up in a lot of victories.
And now talking about high-impact heroes, if we look at Cal State Long Beach's draft so far, there's two things to see. First, Centaur Warrunner in general is a high-impact hero. The way that he can control fights, get in the middle and return damage, but a hero that's not often considered to be incredibly powerful is the Crystal Maiden. However, we've watched these guys play. We know that this team knows how to execute with a Crystal Maiden.
Yeah, I mean, Crystal Maiden is not one of the heroes that you think of being overpowered, but it is literally the most stable hero in pick rate in pub Dota in Dota. For over a year, she's had over 50% in pick rate in pubs. She's the most picked hero this patch in pubs, and she has a really stellar win rate. I mean, an average win rate in pub Dota around like 56%. But at the really high rank MMR where you're starting to see these guys, you're still talking about a 54%, which is really high.
And keep in mind that Crystal Maiden, this is also a team that we talked about their 5 situation, right? It's a person who hasn't played in a while, maybe struggling with the map changes. Well, what a great option to sort of give them an aura-based hero who has the ability to, say, jungle if necessary, to allow your team to benefit even from maybe a couple of missed movements, or not requiring them to be in lane, aggressively playing their hero perfectly.
Yeah, and we absolutely have to talk about the Spirit Breaker coming out of UConn.
Yes.
They have a Spirit Breaker player who has not lost a game this year.
That's true.
Spirit Breaker is not a very popular hero in professional Dota, but in pub Dota he does really well. And remember, this is a bit of a mix between the two. These are high skill players, but most of their experience comes from pubs. Most of their strategies are going to come from pubs. Spirit Breaker is an excellent roamer when communication is bad on the other team, and his win rate is really high in pub Dota. It's really low in pro Dota. So the question is, will CSL, or will Cal State, will they really be able to communicate for those rotations? The Ricky should help them do that because he can scout, but it will come down to communication.
Absolutely, and it is worth noting, you sort of implied it, but we'll just say it point blank. Village Fish, according to UConn, when we talked to him last night, has never lost a game when he's allowed to play the SB.
Yeah.
So this is one of those big tests where the question is, will that be true? If Village Fish can get them that first game advantage, and in this best of 3, this first game advantage is going to be huge for these two teams. So if Village Fish can accomplish that with what I hear is a phenomenal Spirit Breaker, then that's something that will A, be a lot of fun to watch, but B, is going to put Long Beach really on their heels. They also pick up Rubik and Slardar. It's a little bit like we're watching TI3 all over again with these support picks. What do you think about that Slardar grab?
I think Slardar's a really good pick into the Ricky, obviously. Ricky's very difficult to handle. He's picked a lot in both pro and pub Dota. He's great win rates in both. He will be an effective roamer, but if you get that Slardar fast level 6 out of the offlane, he Iron Talons, moves back into those jungle camps pretty quickly. At that point in time, you're starting to ask, can our Ricky really afford to just roam the whole early game and then be level 3 when Slardar has the amplified damage up and can just see the Ricky all the time?
Absolutely. So Ricky going to have a struggle. It sort of already looks like Cal State is going to have a little bit of a hard time based on what we're seeing so far. I'm going to have to rely heavily on communication. I got to be honest with you, Gorgon. If you're relying on communication, the best way to accomplish that is by using Band, the app, the official app that we use for communication here at the CSL.
It's crystal clear for us.
Crystal clear, great communication, and even things like calendars so you can set up your practices and your scrims. Phenomenal program, and the guys are really benefiting from having it here at the stadium today.
Yeah.
OD and Lifestealer picked up. Now, Cal State Long Beach, what do you think about that Lifestealer? It's an interesting get.
It's a very, very popular hero right now. He does pretty well. He's not something that I'm surprised to see, especially with a Ricky and a Centaur. Those are two classic combination heroes. Lifestealer because Ricky's invisible, you got the bomb. Centaur is a high tank hero with a blink dagger who also has the bomb. And Lifestealer is one hero who is susceptible to kiting, but when you do have the Stampede available from Centaur Warrunner, he's going to be able to catch up to everybody. Now, especially because they already banned out the Magnus and the Lina. Magnus is one of these heroes that Lifestealer has a great deal of difficulty dealing with because his natural built-in rage makes him very difficult to stun, other than if you have a Magnus or one or two other heroes that are going to be able to do a decent duration stun through match community.
On the opposite side, UConn got rid of the Slark, the TA, and the Sniper. So really all heroes that are sort of niche picks. They're strong, but they're a pain to deal with, especially if you don't necessarily have had the time to play together in dealing with Slark rotations or Sniper pickoffs. So kind of smart plays there for a team that hasn't been together for that long.
I'm a little surprised to see the Sniper ban here. The TA makes perfect sense.
That tells me somebody was reading Dota Buff.
Yeah, well, partially also just because you already have a Spirit Breaker and a Slardar that can jump in on that Sniper very easily, and you have the Spirit Breaker is also going to be able to roam on him in the mid lane. Like the Sniper OD matchup isn't super favorable for OD, but with a Spirit Breaker roaming, you should be able to make that work.
Well, and keep in mind, Gorgon, when we talked to both of the teams, both of them told us game one, they knew who their opponents were. and both of them were coming in with a game plan. Their intention was to play the heroes that they know, to not necessarily respond completely to the opponent's draft, and to play their plan. So that's sort of what we're seeing here.
Yeah.
And I think that it really is showing effectively. It should be something a little more unique than we're used to seeing in typical
Oh,
years.
a Tinker going to come out
There
here for the
we go.
last pick out of Cal State Long Beach.
Wow.
That's an interesting grab. That's really good into the Ursa. It's really good into the Spirit Breaker. It's really good into the Slardar. And I think that was a really niche last pick. Now, one thing that you got to keep in mind about Cal State Long Beach is that they have a really, really diverse hero pool.
Yeah.
So for the last pick, these are players that are honestly, I think that they prefer a second pick situation so that they can get one counter pick. I think the first 4, it's all their game plan. One last pick to make sure that they have something in state. And Quan will really be the pace setter for this game.
Absolutely. So for two teams who haven't had a lot of time to build chemistry, this is a good chance to do it on the fly. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the first game of the CSL Grand Finals here in Toronto, kicking it off between USC Long Beach and University of Connecticut. I'm Toppies, this is Gorgon, and we are getting ready for an amazing day of Dota. Let's check out the stacks as the towers get bigger. The Battle Pass levels.
Real low Battle
Real
Pass
low.
levels.
All right, so we're into the match, and this is going to be a very good one, guys. Both of these teams playing to prove something here. Both of their opponents here in the stadium watching them play, so a big message they have to send in their first matchup. So without further ado, let's do some quick introductions of these two teams. For the Radiant, ladies and gentlemen, the University of Connecticut. We are going to have the Slardar, played by Bellicoso. We're going to have the OD, played by Melody, the captain, and I like to think shot caller. We're going to have Village Fish, who is legendary, playing the Spirit Breaker. We're going to have none other than in the middle position, old ZH1 on the Rubik. And last but not least, standing on the bottom, waiting for his chance for the rune, it's going to be Ego, the carry, playing Ursa. What a great hero for someone named Ego.
Right, and Ego is a great name for a #1 position player. So for our dire side, that is Long Beach. We're sitting up here on the top with Kilo taking that Crystal Maiden out for a spin. It's going to be Corgi 1, Kenobi crawling around on that Life Stealer, moving down toward the bottom section of it. Actually, we got a little bit of
It's just a spy game.
yeah. But, I mean, this is what you would expect from a hero like this, and we do have ourselves a Pure Zone taking the Ricky, and then down on the bottom side of the map, we do have ourselves Quan taking that Tinker as we mentioned, and then Centaur is going to be taken by Komogo.
Absolutely. So it's going to be a good matchup. It is. This is the CSL, and this is Dota, so it would not be complete without a little bit of a pause to get our day started here as both teams feel comfortable and get situated. A little bit of cheeky play going on by Pizzuri, I think is how you say it here. Early game, as he is just sort of keeping an eye on his opponents, thinking about maybe I want to kick a room, maybe I don't.
Yeah, and now take a look at the way that the vision games are going to play out here after this pause. There are sentries in the area, but the question is, are they going to go? They know that he's on the use from the spot.
Right.
They don't know which one. Do they want to use 100 gold on the off chance that they're going to guess right?
Absolutely. So what we're doing right now is you see Melody going back and forth. He was
gets it.
hoping, so he does get the rune. He was hoping to maybe get a body block or feel some sort of loss of movement to imply where Ricky was. However, he's not able to get it, and Ricky's able to take the rune and just walk away. So they do get all 3 runes to start this. The 4th one obviously going to be left
Actually,
as a
OD
consolation
managed to
prize.
snag that rune. It looked like the Ricky was going to grab it, but the OD got it just
Okay.
last second.
Excellent. So it is split right down the middle. The matchups are underway. We're going to show the last hit card for you guys to keep an eye on in this match. Gorgon, is there a lane that you think is really important? We should just keep an eye on to start the early action.
Yeah, we should absolutely keep an eye on this top lane where Corgi 1 Kenobi is going to be going up against this Slardar. He's even getting some of the Ricky's attention down here. Remember, this is a team that does have a less experience, or at least inexperience in terms of recent game support. So if Corgi 1 Kenobi is pressured heavily, it may end up slowing down for his mid-lane transition. And Quan on the Tinker out of the mid lane, we cannot expect him to be coming in as an early game pace center. That's really a big thing.
Go up top, but they're trying to move on Bellicoso here. A little bit of harass. There's not much they can do to try to finish this, but the root and the Ricky damage is incredibly strong. Is this going to be a huge problem for Bellicoso going forward in this lane? It seems like their harass is going to make it really tough for him to get in there those levels.
Yeah, he'll eventually grab himself 9 down and fall back into the jungle. It would be really nice if he could harass out this life stealer, but if he's not able to, falling back into the jungle should be relatively safe as long as he has 1 sentry put up.
Makes sense. All right, let's take a look back towards the mid. It looks like we've got Pirzon doing what you would expect a Ricky to be doing throughout this game. A lot of harass, causing some trouble. Melody taking a lot of damage here from Quan. His Tinker harass is just on point. Now let's talk OD versus Tinker. Tell me about that matchup.
This is a really tough lane for OD to start with, especially because he doesn't have the ability to sap down Tinker's intelligence yet, and he is really susceptible to heavy burst. He's only sitting on about 700 health, right? Decent health pool, but not when you're talking about what is non-armor reduced damage. But once he manages to get himself up a couple of levels of Astral Imprisonment and maybe 1 level of Arcane Orb, this is going to be a much more favorable matchup. But until then, he is going to have to try and play safe, especially considering there is a Ricky floating around and he does not know where.
So, Quan, in terms of the Tinker mid, what's his timing? When's he looking to get out of lane and start to cause trouble on the pushes?
Whenever he manages to get, actually, I'm going to interrupt this because up top, Kilo is trying to juke. He gets the loot, but he will end up going down. That's a first blood.
Very nice first blood. Good play by Bellicoso. We thought he might have trouble in that lane, but it turns out that he's going to just be in charge of it.
Like I said, if he is able to apply pressure here, this could be a lane that's really susceptible to falling behind.
So very nice. But what were we talking about with Quan in terms of his timing in the mid position?
So he's probably going to want to get his boots of travel up as early as possible. If he has a really good lane here with some help from the Ricky, you might see that come out around 9 to 10 and a half minutes. After that point, he basically just needs to catch up, grab a bottle and some other basic items before he's able to split push around and create space for the life stealer, who shouldn't need that much space, to be honest, because life stealer is also an early activation.
So Pierre's going to head down to the bottom and give a little bit of trouble. He's had a very good start to this game so far. He actually forced Komoguri to go back and use the fountain by getting him very low. He's been in this scary position with a little bit of help from Village Fish, but handling this very effectively on his own without too much aid. Now he's going to come forward again. Ricky wants to try to throw something out here. Komoguri's going to come from the trees. Gets the stop, but here comes the charge. It only catches one. He gets stopped halfway through. The stun won't go through. Ego on the run. Blink strike, and they finish the job. Ego turns back around. He feels strongly about his chance to get a kill here. Does not finish. It ends up going down, but it's a 1-for-1. Both of the supports walk away with a smack. I guess Komoguri got the kill, though, so at least that's something.
Yeah, that's not a good trade. A number 1 for number 3. And moreover, the number 1 died before the kill went down, right? So he didn't get the experience for that. That's going to set them behind. That's way worse up top,
Meanwhile,
actually.
Bellicoso on the run as Corgi Wan and Kilo try to find him out in the trees. Bellicoso slips out the back, and Kilo says, you know, we're not interested in the kill so much as just making you miserable right now. So he will head back to the safety of his tower, and Kilo will head back into the jungle to do what Crystal Maidens do best.
Tinker's going to have his bottle up here very soon. That's going to help him make sure that he's getting sustained. And it's especially important to get an early bottle as a team up against OD, because OD is a so if you can contest,
Ricky was seen. Melody got back just in time, almost got into the blink strike range, which would have, I think, been devastating for Melody's health count right now. Quan, though, look at this, is going to have to play very carefully here in the mid position as he knows he's very low on life. It will get canceled as he has Doors to Shrine.
And they no longer have vision of these lanes, so they don't know if this Ricky's here, if this Ricky is left. They did just drop another sentry. So that at least charged him. Just got him there, so he down the sentry. That way, here we go.
National Improvement followed by the charge. He can come in. The catch is Zon by accident on the chart. Zon has to back away. Juan's going to make the run, but the smoke is just too strong. Melody on the chase. Finally, they get Pure. He will drop down. Quan stays nearby, and it ends up being a 1 kill. Honestly, it was just fortuitous for them. The Spirit Breaker happened to come through and clip the edge on Pure.
Wow, Melody has to be careful here. The laser is off cooldown too. That's pure damage. It will absolutely tear them apart.
I think that one of the Dota commandments is thou shalt not mess with the lasers. You have to get back to your tower as quickly as possible. Try to get your regen up. Right now, they do have the top shrine available if he wants to rotate. Let's go to the top where they're moving on Bellicoso. Big chase by Corgi 1. Bellicoso, though, is just fast enough to stay away and kites the life stealer. How do you fix the kiting problem as a life stealer in the early game?
Well, eventually they're going to have complete dagger initiation, so they're going to have a couple of stuns. They're going to have right now, his goal is to be dangerous. His goal really is to just secure as many last hits as he can and make sure that he doesn't fall behind Ursa. He is falling behind Ursa, though, and that's going to be potentially a big problem. Fortunately, he has kill goal to make up for it.
Absolutely. So let's keep watching as Quan continues to get his farm going here. You've got that bottle that's going back and forth. He's going straight to the boots of travel. What's his time frame? When does he want that up, and when does he want to leave this OD?
So, presumably he's going to want this boots of travel up sometime in the next 45 minutes. Whoa, we saw this out of Village Fish during the qualifiers, and it works every single time. This is exactly why this guy's loving this time so much.
And now they move in. Kilo's going to run. He's going to go ahead and get Ashland in prison for a little bonus in before he dies. He will come down to the landing of death, as will Ricky. It's 3 down. UConn feeling pretty comfortable. UCLB a little bit worried.
I got thrown off there a little bit. You were using like the pre-680 mechanics on that intelligence deal, right? I don't know if that change actually happened, but just for the viewers, the Arcane Orb is stealing the intelligence these days, not the option. It does damage though, so it was a guaranteed kill.
It was a guaranteed kill, lock her in place, get her down, and then finish off with Ricky. So up on top, Pure is going head-to-head with Color Post to slow down his push as the map is spreading out pretty aggressively. Bottom tower being attacked by Ego. Long Beach seems to be finding themselves in a tough situation right now. And he is headed towards, it looks like he's chasing down Pure. He wants to keep his vision on Ricky as long as possible. Going to cancel it before he crosses the river, but does let them know where the rotations are going.
Yeah, that's very helpful. And like I said, we saw this in the playoffs too. Village Fish charging from the north side of the map as a radiant side of it. Very few teams are prepared for that. And you'll also see that they drop the ward up here by their opponents. What used to be the ancient now is the hard stack up here. And that's going to give them vision. So
charge the mid. Village Fish wants to go for Quan. Gets the contact and the stun on Pure. Pure open link back, puts down the smoke, buys a little bit of space, but they're around in the trees now. Pure is going to go on the run. Here comes Kilo to help out. They've already lost the Tinker. That is a dangerous loss for them. Pure looks like he's going to go down as well. Now the chase for Crystal Maiden follows with the charge. Can he get a proc on the stun? Decides not to risk it. CM will be the only one to walk away from what we can call the Village Fish Massacre.
Yeah, this guy is absolutely devastating pace out here.
And so he's living up to the hype that we were given by UConn, knows exactly how to play this hero effectively, and is doing just that. Meanwhile, down the bottom, if we take a look at the net worth stack chart, you're going to see a little bit of a tail of the tape. Radiant goes 1, 2, 3, all with very strong leads. The only core on the side of Dire to even be competitive with them right now is the lifesteal.
Yeah, and also they are ahead about 3,700 net worth at 9 minutes. Fairly substantial. Unfortunately, 3,700 net worth isn't enough for them to be able to go out and start stripping towers right now, but it is definitely enough for them to be able to get active earlier. And this Tinker was on pace to get that 9.5 to 10.5 minute boots of travel that we were talking about before, but he is no longer there. Up top.
Up top, so a fight breaking out as they make another move. UConn is just a non-stop aggression game right now as they get a big pick-off on Ricky.
Yeah. And also, just look at the fact that Village Fish is buying all of his vision. He's buying his observers. As far as I can tell, he's holding them at least. This is a guy who's going around securing vision with charge, securing vision with wards. He's bringing detection for the Ricky. And there's just nothing that CSU have to do about this. And there will continue to be nothing they can do about it until either they collapse as the 3 into a or until they get some core items. So now they're using a Roshan as well.
So the Ego just walks in there and takes it with no contest whatsoever. In the meantime, Crown is still trying to get those boots of travel up about 1,200 away, and just that pickoff in the mid a couple minutes ago was so far back. UConn is very aware, it feels like, of the build requirements of their opponents and are rotating to aggressively slow each of them down in turn.
Well, this could work to their favor, or it could work against them. That Melody did pick up a 10.5 minute Midas. That's kind of a late Midas for a mid player. You normally want that out for like 7 minutes if you can get it. But granted, at that time, he's been pushed back a little bit because of the passive skill changes that occurred recently. Even so, 10.5 minutes means that he's going to be playing from behind in terms of his actual fight network for a solid 15 minutes or so.
Absolutely. I do believe that the fact that they got those early picks here on Quan and let him sort of take the lead in the mid makes Melody feel like he has the leniency to do that, especially with how aggressive Village Fish has been in the early portion of this game.
And especially because he is not the one that has to be the initiator, which means that he's not going to be as vulnerable as an OD normally would be, nor does he need that fast early initiation item for fast Blink Dagger. He can actually afford to just sit on top of basically no combat items whatsoever because Village Fish is doing so much to open up this game.
Absolutely true. Now let's take a look at what Long Beach is sitting on. How is their itemization? Is Long Beach that far behind, or are they pretty close to getting what they need?
They are pretty far behind. I don't want to paint a picture like they're winning, but they need to avoid engagements right now because they have a very trust entire team.
Speaking of avoiding engagements, I don't know if that's going to happen. There's the blink reveal from Slaughter. The charge for follow is going to catch Long as he comes in, and they can follow up. Ricky puts down the smoke. He's not going to have Chase is there. CM tries to get on the back door, and it's low, and it's not going to go. She ends up falling. Is now Melody goes around the top. He doesn't want to disappear from this fight. He gets off a huge ultimate and does a ton of damage. They take 3 heroes down, go back to the shrine and pray that it's enough. Belicosa says, I don't think so. They come in, nice after buy some time off of the heal. They finish off the 4th, and now it's a chase for the 5th. Can they do it? It's a team wipe. They've seen 2 respawn, but that's not enough. A 5-man wipe in 12 minutes.
That's about 4,000 net worth swing if I had to guess.
That's incredible.
That's a lot at 12 minutes. And the fact that your opponents are able to move in with no real initiation, I guess I got to protect some, but they're able to move in, minus on the mid instead of combat initiation, they're able to fight in the shrine. There was really no reason to force that fight. That fight would have been great to force for Dire 7 minutes ago, but now you're sitting at 15 and 2, or I guess we're going to fight 10 and 1. You're too far behind without any item.
You're hitting a point where UConn is at 8.5K in terms of net worth lead. We're
9K.
Yeah, so they're just jumped to 9K. So we're on our way to a almost 1,000 net worth per minute. I mean, we're getting close to that. It's going to start to surge soon. If you're Long Beach, put yourself in their position, Gorgon. What's your plan of action to sort of rein UConn back in and take control?
So if I'm Long Beach, the number one thing that I have to realize is that it's okay for me to give up towers. Yes, I will give up map control, which is not good. But we're going to see I mean, look where these are. They're chasing them all the way back. These towers are effectively down to map control anyway. Instead of trying to engage to preserve them, spend the time that your opponents have to take in order to push those down, farming out the jungle as best you can, putting up internal expectations, but you're going to have to
Now, Quan able to finally finish up those boots of travel, so maybe they
seconds remaining. 5.
Pure Zant is going to be playing the Ricky. Down the bottom, we're going to have Porky One Kenobi on the Troll Warlord. And last but certainly not least, the man with the most to prove and the least practice in which to do it, Kilo on the Crystal Maiden.
All right, and here for UConn, one game up in this best of three, we do have Bellicoso sprinting around on the Dark Seer. Village Fish leading the charge on the Spirit Breaker once again. Ego is going to be your farming Spectre. We do have Old Zink on the Disruptor, and Melody taking that Invoker out.
So the game is up and underway. This should be a pretty good match. Neither team getting too aggressive in the early game. Pure really set this time around is what I'm expecting the draft to do. But UConn aggressively defending the rune this time around. Last time they were off a little bit. This time they're just going to sit there and say, not today.
And they did get it once again, not quite able to end the instant charge. I think that there's probably dust, there is dust. So if the Ricky's not able to move out and get a teleport, he's going to be having a lot of trouble.
The charge is there. They know where he is. He starts to walk back in. He's already a little bit low. This is bad news. So they're coming in. They're going to now move in on him. UConn to follow, but old GH1 picked up the Thunderstrike for Harassing lane, so there's not much value in trying to close out.
That's actually a really weird pick, because against a Ricky, that Thunderstrike doesn't continue to do damage if he goes invisible. you're not going to be able to use that to do a significant amount of harass at level 1 either. You probably won't even cast it at level
1. Mid versus Melody, and I assume we'll be getting some help from the Disruptor throughout this match. Tiny,
nice stunts.
Yeah, right. Tiny seems like he might have a little bit of trouble going up against the range of this Invoker. How do you play this mid as a Tiny?
He's going to need to do the bottle spam a little bit. The nice thing about running a Tiny is because he has so much AoE potential, if you can manage your creeps so that they get to about half health, quarter health all at one time, you're in a much better position.
So CSU Long Beach going with the 2-1-2, a little bit old school, but an awful lot of fun. That said, they're already taking a ton of damage up here on top. Tyner went into first point Kraken Shell, but it's not really allowing him to stay in because the Disruptor plus Ego are just taking it to him every time he comes forward. Village Fish hanging out there as well. But I guess that's good news for Long Beach because you know if Village Fish is sitting in lane, he's not about to kill him. As they charge the Tide Hunter, he's on the run. Como Guri is just too close. The Sunstrike not even needed. And I guess I was wrong. Village Fish in lane can kill you just as quickly as Village Fish on the run.
Well, that ended up just being a bit of an overextension. Sure. You knew he was there. There's no reason to go out that far. Honestly, if you're a Tide Hunter and you're up against a Disruptor, and he didn't know that the Thunder Strike was going to kill him. Crossing over the river at any point in time is really difficult. The Disruptor really good at winning against a Tide Hunter because Kraken Shell is not going to purge a glimpse, right? It will purge most stuns, but glimpse will bring you all the way back regardless.
Right.
And that makes it really difficult to lane against that specific support as Tide Hunter.
Absolutely. So taking a look at the bottom where Darkseer's Bellicoso just going ahead and doing his typical off-lane play, using that Ion Shield to annoy the heck out of Gorgon and Shinobi. Just tell already it's agitated with that way. Looking over towards the Roach bit, we're going to see a pass by Pure. He pings out and says, Village Fish is here, be careful. Meanwhile, Melody in the mid is doing okay against the Tiny. Actually did really well, 12-4. Tiny.
He should be doing really well. I think the Tiny's actually doing better relative to what he should be doing right now. And he's keeping Melody very low. There's a nice avalanche. The toss back to the Ricky. This is a kill.
Beautifully done. Melody a little too far forward, and just as we go to him, they go ahead and deliver. So a nice mid to put it in 1-for-1, and this is already looking better than Long Beach's first game.
Yeah, well, there has been no Spirit Breaker rotations on the Quan. And remember, he was doing really well in his lane until he got rotated out last game as well.
And honestly, his...
I like this play. He's not going to use the Sunstrike anytime before the duration. So as soon as he's up, he uses it for the free damage out of the fountain. You don't actually see that a lot, but it's a pretty heads-up play.
That's pretty smart. Gives you a little bit of advantage when you return. And that said, it is sending a bit of a message. We're not willing to let you push us around. But Quan, this time, a very different hero than last time. Let's actually go to the bottom where it looks like Bellicoso. They're moving in for a gank. They get a nice close. Roots him, blocks him in place. Troll Warlord's closing the distance. He's got a good attack. They will finish the job to make it 2-for-1. And Long Beach, a team that looked like they were on their last leg not 10 minutes ago, starting a very strong game, too.
Yeah, the rotations just haven't necessarily been for Village Fish, and we were both shocked. I looked at the players and made eye contact and asked what. That's going to do the ban phase, but they've been doing a much better job of just keeping control. I mean, look at this ward placement over there by the Roche pit. That is going to prevent any of the from the rear Spirit Breaker charges that caught them off guard last time. He will have to charge through that. And that's just made the Tiny feel so much safer this game. And with the Ricky rotating a lot more and a lot earlier this game, all of their lanes have been doing a little bit better.
And that's a key, I think, for Long Beach. They have to do well in the lane phase. They are, as you said, sort of a standardized team. When we talk super aggressively, it's hard to play war strategy, right? This time around, feel a little more comfortable. They're having a very difficult lane up here. Let's go back to the mid where it looks like they continue to want to give Melody trouble. He's got good regen, and now Pure will finally rotate away. But again, Village Fish is where he loves to charge from.
Where do you want Kenobi's actually let himself get really low to the Zion shows? Partially because he's spending most of his time.
Charge from behind, trying to get the double. He's going to get the tap on Pure as well as the follow on Quan. Quan's there, Sunstrike knocked out of it. The 17 ends up hurting. It won't cost them too big as he's there to make sure he helped out.
That was really smart. If I'm not mistaken, they waited for the avalanche to be used in order to spend the charge. So even though presumably they saw the that ward, they still had no tools to deal with it when he arrived. That was very patient by Village Fish. Again, just goes to show you why this is the playmaker of this.
And again,
so much going on.
They also waited on the charge until Ricky found himself in a position between the target, right? So they managed to get the pure stop, and they wanted to keep the smoke from going down at the smoke screen. They did a really good job of picking that off. So smart play. That said, it's still 2-2, and the goal lead's only 1,000. So it's really anybody's game at this point.
All right, the one's back onto Tiny, and this is sort of what happened last game. The mid lane just started to get out of control. Melody started to run circles around him once the rotations came in from Village Fish, and with that lane falling behind, that last game was their pace setter. It was a Tinker who was supposed to be the reason why they had space, and they didn't have it. This game, a Tiny isn't necessarily that reason that you would expect space, but depending on how they build it, it's supposed to be a Tinker like red for a and if you're not getting that fast blink, then basically you just have to do a combat build. It will allow you to go into the late game pretty effectively with control.
No, Kilo's going to keel over here. Village Fish is over stage 1. Fine, he's blocking the jungle. Not much you can do with that as a CF, so maybe go the long way around. Basically, they got the pick mid. They all hit the shrine. 4 of them sitting on the shrine get back to full, and now they'll go to the bottom and start the process of the push. Well, up on top, Ego and Como are now going ahead. Ego enjoying pretty much a free farm up here. As Como can't do anything to stop him.
Yeah, he's in a one-on-one. He should be able to at least get into the smash and make last inning difficult, but Ego is just too practiced to play. And again, Juan going down.
Brutal. And the thing is, while that's happening, even on the bottom, Radiant is rotating people down there because it looked like they were pushing for the gank. I don't know. You saw Bellicoso leaning in, and before the TP came out from Yellow as well, we saw Village Fish implying that there was going to be a gank, and instead they go mid.
Yeah, Corey Yuan's also been suffering because he had to put his head behind the tree line before he himself got ganked by a Village Fish rotation. So his last hits are really starting to slide. The Darks here has been.
Bellicoso trying to get a kill here. He pops the surge, goes into the trees, decides to go the safer route. He should be able to get away here. So the biggest issue, this is sort of what we saw in the last game, right, is that the ganks for UConn seem to consistently kill, while the gank attempts from Long Beach are just not quite there.
I mean, Long Beach are in a better position this game than they were last game.
For sure.
With Troll Tiny, that's a lot of damage output once Tiny attacks, right? You do the Berserker's Rage, and the Battle Chains, and you have Tiny Ags, you could just obliterate an entire
They're gonna get Eagle, they need Eagle, they go for it, but no, the stun transfers to Ricky. He tries to go invis, but the vision is there. Ego so low, walks through the trees. Crystal can't do it because she still hits for like 30. And not only does he walk away incredibly low, but they get a double kill out of it.
Yeah, this is starting to slide out of control. And the vision that the Radiant have here is just not sufficient at this point. It was good to start the game, but you'll notice as the first round of wards started to fall off, that's exactly when they started to lose control of this game. They have not re-upped the vision in a proactive way. They have a very sufficient mid lane ward if there wasn't Spirit Breaker on the other team, but because the Spirit Breaker's on the other team, the Ricky honestly has to come out and put those wards up deeper, which is dangerous and difficult, and this is one of the reasons why I was so surprised when we'll have to come back to this, because
Looking up on top, they're making it again. There's not much he can do. The value of the Disruptor is shown in dividends. Is Komagori just can't do anything.
yeah,
Kraken
the
Shell's
Iron
not
Shell.
helping. You know?
Iron Shell's so rough for him too, because Kraken Shell, once again, doesn't stop that, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't damage block magical damage. It also doesn't purge it because the Iron Shell's on component. That's a lot of the survivability of the Time Hunter comes from the damage reduction of Anchor Slash and the damage block and purging from Kraken Shell. And honestly, UConn drafted really well to make this game difficult for a Tide Hunter.
Absolutely. It's almost like Long Beach feels like they're driving on ice a little bit. They keep trying to fix the direction they're going, but an overcorrection occurs, and they just sort of keep sliding out of control.
Yeah, look at this aggressive board down here as well. I mean, the Trolls just had to leave this lane entirely. They're going to charge here because they do have reverse vision, and I don't think Ricky sees this coming.
No, he doesn't. Throws the smoke down just by a little bit of space. The sun strikes there, and he can't walk out this way. But the second he does it, he saw the right click. He knew he was in some trouble. He goes down. But in the meantime, more important perhaps, CS Long Beach saw it coming, and they used used it to their advantage and got a pick onto the Spectre.
Yeah, I saw that going. I thought we'd have just enough time to flip up to the Spectre kill right before. The rookie lasted a little bit longer because of that smoke placement than I think we expected. So either he must have seen them charging through this fresh ward.
Yeah, but it's encouraging because it tells me that Long Beach is keeping their wits about them, right? They saw what was happening. You know that Ricky realized it was coming because he threw that smoke down.
Yeah.
And the second that he did it, Long Beach responded. Instead of spamming TPs to try and rescue a lost cause, they put together a game.
Well, I think they put him down there in order to draw attention. Up top.
Up top, Eagle goes in deep. He's not worried about it, but everyone else is here. Very dropping low, so strike comes out. Not getting anything because they thought he might be chasing. Drops him away. While Gorgie tries to walk out the back door, ends up going down. Troll Warlord is lost, and the push is on. UConn now has more up top for
Yeah.
lost Invoker.
They all rotated top for that fight. They did take Corgi one, but the Invoker's worth a lot more right now. That's honestly the power of the Tiny U, right? And he is going through that Blink Decker Ancient build. He has managed to recover a little bit, not quite enough to make this timely, but enough.
CS wants to fight. They come in and even on Spectre. Kilo drops low. Something from Brad putting a little bit of work. Village he goes down to the tower, but lots of work put in by the Spectre. Here comes Control for the back. Nice job, 41. TP's in the fight. Komoguri trying to kite around. Can't seem to stop anybody, but a nice stun by Quan. He TP's to the top and gets involved. They picked off 2 for the price of 3. Quan on the chase. They want to finish the Spectre. They have to finish the Spectre, and they do. So it goes 3 for 3 with a buyback from the Crystal Maiden.
This guy, excuse me, Corgi one Kenobi's going for an older skill build as well. Or he's going into the phase boots into Sanjin Yasha. That gives him a lot of movement speed to keep up with the Spectre, who otherwise often gets away thanks to the Spectre dagger.
They want to go, pick him up, toss him down. He's already dropped to 3/4 health. One more right click. The help arrived, but was unnecessary. They just gained the XP. Meanwhile, let's go back to top where Purple's got to run. The charge is coming in. There's the pop, the follow. Disruptor wants to do something, but sees Komoguri comes out and says, guys, it's not worth the risk. Long Beach is Johnny on the spot with these rotations right now.
I've got to tell you, UConn do not sound happy right now. They're kind of all shouting every time the Invoker gets picked off, and I'm not sure if they're shouting at the Invoker or if it's him shouting at them, but somebody's very unhappy about the way that this mid lane is turning.
Absolutely. So they're going to hang out the top tower.
Oh, that was a bad call.
They go ahead and go for the deny. Now they've got to back away because lots of invisibility coming after them right now. Quan's on the hunt. Very strong. He's going to go ahead and find him. He tosses him up and knocks him down. Easy disruptor kill. And that was a bad call because they needed the vision, but they didn't know that they needed the vision against Quan.
Yeah, they immediately ran into the woods, so I think that they had a pretty good sense that there was a flock flying their way. It might have even been worth just giving up the tower rather than risking the Spectre. Now, granted, the tower would have been worth more than the Disruptor, so it ended up working out. But the Spectre is the one that put himself at risk. That could have ended up being much worse than it was.
Melody, they're saying be careful. They might be rotating down on him as he's in the mid. UConn doing a good job of keeping the farm up. Whenever Long Beach gets together, I will say UConn's been very good at making sure that all the farms are still essentially getting farmed. Village Fish comes in, finds Komoguri. Lots of backup for him though. Village Fish hot on the outside. Hilo gets the stun. Big play by Como, so they do get a pick off on the 2. Now Pirzon wants to chase Bellicoso. Bellicoso has to back away even after TPing up from the bottom.
He's not going to make it against the Circus.
They do get the nice Sunstrike finish by Melody. He picks off Komoguri as he was trying to get to safety, so maybe not as costly as it was. Still a 2,000 gold lead going the way of UConn.
Yeah, it's always really costly when you've got a farming Spectre who falls down before the first item. And she's also going into a Blade Mail instead of going into the early Radiant, which we had mentioned would be really good up until the Troll and the Tiny. Now, granted, the Blade Mail is a better item for this build of a Tiny, but a mid-style Tiny that does go for a Blink Dagger first is doing a ton of burst damage. Get a Blade Mail.
Village Fish is going full blown with the charge. CS wants to go for him, taps here, which is unfortunate. They keep going. Now someone's got to try it out. Comes to the help. C is there. CH1 is there as well. Big play by the Disruptor. Sunstrike comes out, tags the Troll on the back, and now Bellicoso's got to search to safety, but they manage to pick off the Troll. Buyback coming out from Quan to get involved with this fight.
Yeah, that was a terrible case because they didn't even have to fight up against the Spectre or the Invoker there because both of those heroes were down bottom taking out Quan.
So he has arrived though, sees Kilo trying to help out. He's going to get pulled back with Disruptor. Nice play there to lock him in space. Just too strong. Komoguri Curry gets knocked back again by the stuns. Village Fish keeping everyone locked in place. Quan throws Ego at his own team, but is not fast enough to get himself out of here. The smoke is trying to slow down Belicoso, but it's not going to be enough. Ricky goes to ultimate, trying to put on a little bit of damage. Sunstrike as soon as he lands, it's not going to catch him. They do see him. They've got the vision. The charge is up as well. The last man standing was Quan.
With the big.
Huge play there. Pushes Ego backwards a little bit, but ends up getting sent back in a heads-up play by LG.
That save time is off. That big charge. No concern for his own safety. It's almost like where you want expected for the truck back out of habit. And it ended up working out really, really well for them. That Tiny otherwise dropping again 2 times in one fight would have been absolutely devastating just as they're starting to maybe peak for a comeback. Yeah.
So 5K advantage now going towards UConn. Apparently their frustration and shouting got them back on track because those last 2 fights were very strong. They seemed back to where they need to be. And more importantly, Village Fish seems to have reverted back to his old self. That first couple of plays we saw from him were questionable at best, a little bit cocky perhaps. In that fight, he was very effective, always stayed within range of his team, and focused on the knockback value, not the damage value.
Yeah, a big portion of what's been happening here too is that Spectre did finish up that blade mail. And with an Ion Shell on a Spectre with a blade mail, you just have to ignore her and let her take a third of the Troll Warlord's health down or more before he can even engage on her. And that's especially true for a Tiny, who's all burst damage right now. And it's going to be even more true once the Tiny finishes his Echo Saber. He cannot attack her while she has that blade mail up, or he'll just eliminate himself.
Definitely. Now on the upside, Corky1 does manage to have the Sanjo. He's going to close on the Yasha the next couple of minutes so he doesn't get picked off here. Pretty good get for him. The slow is going to be very, very helpful. Pure going to head down and try to keep an eye on him because I think babysitting Corgi is going to be sort of the order of the day for the next few minutes.
Yeah,
but as we say that, it could be some trouble as Corgi's got to run. The stun is there. The Sunstrike comes out, but it's going to miss. But the chase is still on. Here comes Village Fish. Big vacuum. Pulls him back. Pure inside the wall. Pops his ultimate, but nobody's inside of it. CM goes down. Corgi goes down. They pop the vision, but Pure's able to dodge the juice.
And this should be a pretty devastating potential push into this bottom lane and start doing some damage. And that's exactly what Melody is rotating for here.
So very nice plays by UConn, heads up. They saw what Corgi was trying to accomplish. They knew that he was being guarded, and they just immediately executed a gank there. In the mid, you've got Komaguri trying to find a little bit of something for himself. And can they contest this?
Yeah, if the Tiny gets in with a really, really big combo on top of a Ravage, they could absolutely just win this team fight. And in response for that potential, he's got Tornado as well.
Village comes in, puts out the dust. They want to see what's going on. Quan is forced to move early. Does manage to secure Village Fish, and that will force UConn backwards. So Melody and the fake, a little careful to fake and turn back around. It doesn't catch enough though. Inside, maybe it's not worth staying. Fake could cost him as he comes to Scott trying to silence. No ultimate from the Tidehunter. He is Gallagher before he has a chance to attack. Huge play. UConn can turn back around now and push. They don't have to worry about the Tidehunter ultimate.
Yeah, and
Quan breaks the play. Melody runs away with 100 health to his name. Almost got the barges, but they're already down 3. Quan playing some very scary decisions right now.
Yeah, now look at Quan rotating around this way. He's got the blink there. He's trying to find an Invoker as he moves through the back end, it looks like. Not going to be able to find him, unfortunately. But he will find himself a nice double damage rune, and that should be enough for him to be able to re-engage now that he has an Echo Saber up.
So Quan in a true carry position right now as he tries to keep his team in this match. They're down by 7,000 gold and 1 game, and their hopes and dreams of winning the CSL Grand Final are on the line, and all sitting on the back of this strangely colored red and gray monster.
Yeah, normally you would expect, like, oh, there's a Spectre on the other team. That team is going to be able to go into the late game, and there's really nothing you can do about it. But with a Tiny Troll Warlord combination, the Tiny by himself, maybe not. But a Tiny and a Troll or a Tiny and an IO can absolutely go toe-to-toe with the Spectre and Invoker and Warlord.
Ooh, I like this. The good decision here by Long Beach, making sure that they keep themselves in this match by any means necessary. And they're going to have to try to...
This isn't the big game. Yeah. The problem is with that smoke, they don't have any vision. So if they're going to do that sort of smoke, they've got to do it as a group into areas where they don't have vision, put up vision, and then try to use the tail end of the smoke.
Right.
So they will end up pulling a tower out of this. It does help them out, but it's not the big win that they were hoping for.
It definitely might help them finish a few items.
Oh, Spectre ult.
Spectre ult's going to go
scout?
off. I guess so. Looks like they're pinging Cormaberry. Kilo, the Sunstrike's going to be off. Kilo turns back around. Looks like the move that might expose him to the Invoker here. Can't get to the shrine in time, so Kilo will go down.
Comes back, cannot crack and shell that off, as we mentioned. So he's just going to go down.
Yeah, so both drop down. A very nice play from the guys on UConn. And really, that's what it seems to come down to with UConn here, is that they are just a never say die kind of team. They aren't letting up the throttle. We talk sometimes, you always sort of make fun of me when I talk about this sort of throttle system, right, of like driving a car and playing Dota, very similar. But UConn's doing that. They got the lead, they put their feet on the gas, and they haven't downshifted yet. Even when they lose 3 or 4 heroes, they're right back in the fight.
Yeah, there are a couple of moments where they started to quote-unquote shift back, but never the whole team at one time, right? Ego takes a shift back because he knows he can hunt in, or Village Fish takes a shift back because he knows he's not going to be able to find the exact right moment to charge. But the whole time, Disruptor and Darkseer are moving around. The Invoker is almost always geared for a Sunstrike Melody, very, very on point. And the way that this is ending up shaking down, you need some more items here for Long Beach, right? They don't even have the Sanjin Yasha up yet on Corgi One Kenobi. He fell behind last game, and now he's falling behind this game because they're continually having to use him in these gank attempts.
And that's what you talk about. Because of the gank attempts, they're slowing down item timing, and they're making sure that they control everything about the pace of this match. Long Beach, to their credit, refuses to give up in that context. They try a lot of these things. They're cheekily moving around the map, sort of changing the pace of what I think Connecticut's expecting, but it's not quite enough.
See, now this is kind of unacceptable, though, right? They did blow a big smoke. They didn't find anything, but they also didn't put up rewards during it, right? That's huge. And the CM is sitting on top of one. Let's take a look. They also have some wards, at least one
At least a sentry in it. She just put one down. Now, and this, again, could come down to, we talked about this, the player playing CM has been out of the meta for a little while.
Somebody's got to coach her a little bit.
So, and that's something where, you know, when you're Quan, you're the shot caller, and the roommate of CM, you've got a lot on your plate right now. So thinking, you know, throw down a ward while we're transitioning through this area might be a lot to ask. That said, it's definitely your lack of recent play is showing.
We got another Village Fish play. No, he's going to pull off, and he's going to do it right in
kind of a dangerous area.
Yeah, this is not the part of town he wants to be
Quan's hungry, he goes for the move, but there's a Darkseer nearby. He's not going to be able to stop Quan, though. Quan gets knocked back. 17 puts him inside of the corner. Quan in some trouble, throws to finish. He does get the SP. No, not timing. Just outside the circle. Another second, the wall was there, the vacuum, everything that they needed to stop him. So it's a Quan for a Village Fish, not the trade that they wanted.
Once again, Village Fish falling on the sword over and over again. He didn't necessarily have to die there, but if he didn't happen to make that sort of questionable decision, then they would have...
I would argue that wasn't exactly a Harikari moment. That was a I stopped my charge a little bit too late moment.
Right, that's exactly what it was. But it ended up working out because that was an invisible Tiny. If he didn't get Village Fish, he was going to get the Invoker. And that's a much better trade for them. It's like, oh, even when Village Fish is doing the wrong thing, he's doing the right thing.
I would say Long Beach a little bit of unluckiness there, perhaps.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, you know, maybe you cancel it because you know that Invoker's in striking range to back you up should something go wrong. And that's exactly what he did. I will say, for a team that has only been together since the start of playoffs, UConn's communication has been absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah, they've been rotating really well. And to their credit, Long Beach have actually been very tight as well. The problem is they've been playing from the back foot, and they're tight because they're moving out as complete 5 seconds of smoke very consistently. Whereas the more complicated maneuvers that are coming out from their opponents are more impressive.
Kilo in some trouble here. Sunstrike is making catch. Quan wants to follow. They move on to Village Fish, gets the toss. Separated by the ultimate, though, the fight's breaking out all over the map. Darkseer in some serious trouble from Corky. Corky's trying to finish him off, but he's not the main edge. He's basically kiting as he pulls them backwards. So he'll now run for the trees. Disruptor and CM, the only ones to go down. So all we've lost so far are the supports. Everyone else took a lot of damage, but that's about it. Worth noting, though, Tidehunter was able to still keep his ultimate, so they will have the Ravage in the next fight. Spectre will be back up in 18 seconds, so we're not far off of sort of all of these big explosive ultimates being right back where they need to be.
Now, Long Beach absolutely can come back in this game, though. 25 minutes, 12,000 net worth deficit is not nearly as bad as anything we saw last game.
It's literally half of what we saw last game.
And there was no point in time in the game last game where they were... And they're going to be able to grab Ego.
They go up top, they get the Ego.
That's
they
a great
did lose
trade.
the tie, but yeah, still a great trade. Well, they lost Quan too.
It doesn't matter. It's still not a good trade anymore. Egos got the buyback.
Things are unraveling fast now. Boy, they've lost Kilo, the last man standing as the Troll Warlord. Corgi gonna run for the hills. Should be able to get out of this one. He's still being chased though. Spectre went deep on his. I've got the Radiance. I want to play. Corgi walks through the back, and he goes down to the wall. It's a team wipe, baby.
That
and
was-
there's nothing they can do.
Village Fish flopped his way in there and physically pushed him
my
into that wall.
God.
You're like, no. I think you do want to walk through my friend's wall.
Right.
You don't want to be rude, do you?
Special delivery from Village Fish. Ego jumps right back in. It was a classic Spectre buyback moment. They'll be able to take the tower. They can push on down. We should see a little bit of a defense here. Maybe they get the tower, but I think that's about it because we've got everyone coming back up, including the Troll in just 17 seconds.
They're going to actually rotate. Probably one of those.
get themselves a little bit of an easier rotation.
There's no point. They're not as far ahead as they were last time, right? They can't afford.
Juan's looking for stragglers, but he walks through a ward, gets saved by Ulti H1, saves himself in a split-second move. Actually, really good reaction time. I don't know if you saw that or
Yeah,
not.
I saw it.
Really great job to get himself just barely to safety because you saw Juan still got a spell off before he got there. So it was close to the combo.
They're actually not going to take this try, and it started to look like they might, especially because I think the TP is on cooldown from the Tiny, so you might as well, right? But he does still have this double damage rune in this bottle, and it must be a new one, because the other one had to have expired. But double damage with a Shadow Blade, with a Eco Saber, and the Blade, that is an instant death if he can get his hands on this Invoker.
Right, and that's exactly what he's going to be looking for. So keep an eye on him. Kwang going to be the game changer if he can land the right combo. But this is exactly what happened to Kwang to a certain extent last time. It comes down to, are they able to hit the combo? Can they execute perfectly in order to get back into this?
Yep.
And that's hard to do when you're a team that hasn't had a lot of practice time together, when you've got a new player playing a Crystal Maiden on your team. Like,
Yeah.
there's just a lot to deal with there.
The nice thing for Quan, at least, though, is that he can single-handedly erase somebody in this game, not like when he was on the Tinker that quite as well.
Kilo.
That's actually pretty fine. These fights, the Crystal Maiden doesn't do very much anyway. The Spectre maybe gets rooted in these fights, but that's about it. And now you traded a Haunt for 100 seconds, Crystal Maiden for 40 seconds.
I mean, I think one of the big issues you run into, though, is if you look at the hero levels right now. You've got your Spectre at 21, your Invoker's at 20, and then Quan's at 18. Your next two cores on the Radiant side are 14 and 13, respectively. So they are just really far behind in terms of the stats and the ability to sort of maintain themselves in this game.
Yeah, you're really basically just relying on three heroes right now. You're relying on the Tiny to have damage, the Tide Hunter to have initiation, and the Troll to have kite. If you don't have those three heroes all on point, and the Tide Hunter Commandery has been caught out several times without being ready to use his rabbit, that's been a big problem. And part of that big problem is that he was basically forced to go into an auxiliary role. He rushed out of mechanism, he doesn't have a blink dagger, now he's trying to
Up on top, Juan wants Ego, finds him, uses the full combo that you talked about. The Sunstrike's there, and the double damage sneak attack is not enough. Ego lives. Now, Commandery came to help, but got there too late. The only help he's going to provide is a little bit of friendship back at the base as they wait to respawn.
Yeah, this is, at least he saved his rabbit.
Big blink forward, wants to move on Kilo, throws up the Sunstrike. Kilo is going to go down again to this Melody Invoker, who has been, in the first game we talked about Village Fish's Spirit Breaker, he to break this game open. Melody's
yeah, especially because we got out of this game where Quan played his hero honestly, the biggest problem that we've been running into over and over again is that lanes start to collapse with both of these games. The lanes collapse really quickly for Long Beach, and that has forced Sports One to try to play out. He's being forced into team fights much earlier than his heroes were really desperate.
being forced to collapse. That's exactly what happened to Ancient right now. As University of Connecticut proves that they can do even with the new rosters. They come out here, they play very well, and they take it in two. For me, I got to be honest, my band player of the game, Melody.
Yeah. The way that this game ended up working down, too, it shows a lot of potential for the finals, right? If you are looking at the finals, you absolutely are thinking, oh, this Invoker is going to be a problem. This Spirit Breaker is going to be a problem. If we have to go up against UConn, do we have the bans to take care of these heroes? You have to get rid of the meta heroes, too, right? You can't just give them the Treant. You can't just give them the Monkey King. But how do you not get rid of that Spirit Breaker?
And that's exactly it. Now, fortunately for them, Spirit Breaker didn't have as much of an early game impact as we saw in the first match. But again, you brought it up. He likes to play that Spirit Breaker from behind. He likes to come from angles that you don't expect. And the second that we saw Village Fish in that game start to do those attacks is when we saw the entire spool of Twine begin to unwind.
You know, you could even make the argument that before he was getting kills, he was making a higher impact than any other player in the game just because of the potential pressure that he was applying.
The fear tactic,
Yeah,
the fear that
exactly.
we talked about. If you don't see him on the map, you assume that something bad's about to happen to you. And that hurts your farming potential, your gold potential, and pretty much everything about the laning phase.
Yeah, you can't engage if you think like, oh, maybe Spirit Breaker is right around the corner.
Right.
If we engage now, we're gonna die. And it did help that there were a couple of just really small, ultimately laning errors that were coming out here. You know, we had a little bit of trouble last hitting from Corgi1 under the tower once he was pushed in. The Tidehunter was a little bit too far forward during the laning phase at a couple of moments, especially into a disruptor, as we mentioned. A very difficult lane for him. But small mistakes like that, when you have players that compound advantage as well as UConn do, they really add up. The mid game there was really well executed, especially right out of the laning phase for about 10 minutes. There was a period where Quan really looked like he was going to pull this game back, despite the fact that he himself had kind of a rough laning phase. But they just were not able to do it. Ultimately, the advantage that they had given their opponents was too much for them to come back.
Ultimately, congratulations to Long Beach. They fought a long, hard road to get here, dealt with some issues, including things like international travel and visas.
Yeah.
They put up a good fight, but at the end of the day, it just was not enough. University of Connecticut advances to the grand finals and their chance to play for the $20,000 grand prize. A lot of pressure on the line, a lot of fun for them, and we've got more games for you guys today. I do want to give a big shout out to the folks here in Toronto. They've been very welcoming of us. A big shout out to Ace Republica Gamers for all the equipment that you see in front of you today. Band for the communication software. And of course, Twitch.tv for making this all possible and supporting us from the start. And the big sponsor here, I think, that needs the most credit is Mothers Everywhere. So happy Mother's Day to you. Without you guys, none of us would probably be here at the moment.
So why don't you guys go give your mom a call or a text or something. We're going to be back with an interview with the winners from that match, UConn, in just a minute.
Absolutely. Go say hi to Mom. We'll be back. Toffee's out. Welcome back, guys. This is Toffees here at the CSL Grand Finals in Toronto, and I get the chance to sit down with Bellicoso, the captain of UConn, who just pushed through to the Grand Finals in 2 games. Congratulations, Bellicoso. How does it feel to be going to the Grand Finals?
It's pretty good. It's awesome.
I imagine. What did you tell me a little bit about that game? When you guys going into the set, especially game 2, were you pretty confident about coming out ahead on this one?
Yeah. We played a lot of captain mode with Spiritbreaker, and this is the pick we feel like most confident about. And like as soon as we grab the Spiritbreaker, we feel like we win. Yeah.
Absolutely. I think you were telling me yesterday that Village Fish, when he's allowed to play the Spiritbreaker, hasn't actually lost a game in competitive.
Yeah, that's the truth.
What do you think it is about the Spiritbreaker pick that works so well for your team and your ability to win with it?
Well, it's easier to aim to take down the one who we charge. Like he just click the charge and we kill it. It's pretty easy.
Sums up Spiritbreaker pretty well,
Yeah.
actually. That's it. So you're the captain of the team,
Yeah.
and you play the off-lane position.
Yeah.
But the shot caller is your carry, correct? The Eagle, I believe.
Yeah.
So how does that work? Is it sort of, do you get input from them during the draft, or do you sort of pick heroes and say, here's what you're playing, now figure it out?
Because the most damage is from our cores, so they know when we can win the fight.
Okay. So is Ego calling the charges for Village Fish, or is Village Fish sort of choosing where you guys are going to be taking those fights initially?
Basically, we tell him to charge.
Okay. So you say go for it, and everybody's ready to just jump in and make it happen.
Yeah.
Excellent. So game 2, you managed to pull it off in 2. You didn't have to reveal too much to your future opponents. What's your plan going into the next round?
If they don't ban Spiritbreaker, we still pick it.
Well, if you're watching future opponents, the strategy is let us continue to play the Spiritbreaker, and it has been insanely effective so far.
Yeah.
You guys dominating the mid lane. You told me that you guys didn't have a lot of time to train together. Village Fish was stuck in New York waiting for visas. You put the team together right before playoffs, or sort of reformed the roster. Your communication looked really good while you guys were out there. You played effectively as a team.
Yeah.
Did you specifically focus on communication, or did that just sort of happen because you guys all seem to be pretty good friends?
Yeah, we communicated a lot.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you've worked together to sort of build the communication.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, guys, we're excited about seeing what you bring to the next round. I don't want to get too much information because I don't want to give too much away. But we're looking forward to seeing you in the grand finals. You've advanced all the way there. You're now literally playing for $20,000. You guys are all college students, a lot of you with very unique, I think we had a philosophy major, an engineering major, a lot of different folks
I'm the
there.
philosophy major.
You're the philosophy major. I looked up some philosophy last night, but it was way over my head, so kudos to you. That said, though, tell me a little bit about the team's feelings coming to the tournament. Is it exciting to come do something like this, or is it sort of like it's just Dota as
It's
regular?
expected.
It's expected?
Yeah.
Nice. So you go in there with the intention of this isn't just a LAN, this is just us playing Dota and doing what we do best.
Yeah.
You heard it here first, guys. If you go into something like this and you just keep it chill and play like it's always been played, you got a good chance to advance. So congratulations, UConn. Congratulations, Bellicoso, on some
Thank
great
you.
drafts, to be honest, that carried them all the way to the grand finals. Now, don't go anywhere because we'll be back in just a few minutes with the breakdown with Ryan and Zingle, and it should be pretty good.
Hey guys, I'm Michelle with CSL and I'm here with Long Beach. So I'm just going to have the players introduce themselves first.
Hi, I'm Isaac, also Corgi1 Kenobi as the player handle.
I'm Richard Quico, aka Kilo. Hi, my name is Quan, and my in-game name is Quan as well.
My name is Eric, and my in-game name is Komoguri.
Hi, Juan Lee. My IGN is Pearson. And
So from California to Toronto, how are you guys feeling being over here?
Oh, it's pretty cool. It's really exciting to be over here in like a whole different country just to play like video games and stuff.
Awesome. And this is your first time getting to the semifinals in CSL League so far, right?
Yeah.
So how do you guys feel about finally getting to the top four?
Accomplished.
Accomplished?
Really tired. I mean, our flight yesterday was like 11 p.m. You know, we got here at 9 a.m. this morning. So
Yeah. It's really cool though, because like you tell your parents that you're gonna go overseas to play video games. I mean, in a different country to play video games, and it's like they're like, what the hell? Is that for real?
So you
yeah, it's
guys
pretty cool.
were kind of like almost the unknown team in the CSL.
Yeah.
Basically, how did you guys get yourselves where you are? Was there a big roster change? Did you guys recruit new people?
It's this guy all here, right here, team captain. Hey, Captain Quan. Yeah.
I actually don't know what to say. I mean, we had visa issues. 3 of our players are actually sub players because 3 of our main squad players didn't get their visa approved. Kind of unfortunate.
Yeah.
Well, considering you guys are all the way over here, and you all have kind of matching shirts, basically, how is the esports scene on your school?
There is an esports scene, but for the game that Dota2, it was basically non-existent there until we got top
Until we
4.
made top four.
Yeah, once we got top 4, they're like, oh shit.
Do you guys think you'll get new players now that you kind of have your name out there?
Yeah, maybe. Hopefully.
Yeah.
So, you guys have games coming up tomorrow. What's your opinions on the opponents you're going up against?
I mean, we've done a little research about UConn. They have a really good team. Apparently all international students. So, I don't know. I heard about 2 of their very individually skilled players. We'll have to look out for them.
So, I think that kind of wraps up our very brief interview, but before I close this up, do you guys have any shout-outs you want to give?
The boys.
Well, shout out to my parents, my little brothers, Hyuho Shin. I know who you are. So yeah, and then that's pretty much it.
Shout out to our esports club, and especially to those 3 players who couldn't go, Alex, Kian, and Frankie.
yeah, shout out to the sports club, my friends that are probably gonna watch tomorrow and just like blame the hell out of me. Shout out to everyone who supported me playing Dota. I never thought I'd be here, but Nina Chung, she's one of my biggest supporters. So thanks.
All right, so that kind of completes everything. Thank you guys for your time, and definitely good luck tomorrow.
Thank you so much.
Hey guys, I'm Michelle at CSL, and I'm here with UConn. I'm just going to have the players introduce themselves first.
Hi, I'm OZ. I play position 4 for UConn.
Hi, my name is Colin, and my ID is Eagle. I play position 1 for UConn.
Hello, I'm Junior Boyko Solo. My position is third.
Hi, I'm Melody. I'm mid player. I prefer Kobe Bryant.
Hi, my name is Haran, Village Fish League, and I play position 5 in this team.
All right, so only Eastern team at this final. How does it feel being the only one to represent the East Coast?
Feels good. I don't know, they put all the East Coast team in the same bracket, so we're the only ones, I guess. I'm feeling pretty nervous right now.
I don't know. I don't know. I have no idea yet.
Okay. Well, you guys are basically going to be playing against one of the best teams in the nation. You guys kind of had like this weird bypass through into the semifinals with so many the bye games or something. So basically, how are you guys prepared to take on literally the top few colleges in the nation?
So we had a few practices, and then I'm the one who's added this year, and then they have been playing for the last year, so our coordination is pretty good. Yeah, so we had a few exercise means we have no exercise, so we don't. Yeah, I guess we're just good friends, so I think we'll be playing our best.
That's good. Well, you guys are playing as a group of friends. So how's the kind of esports scene or Dota scene at your school?
Well, it's society. It's a place where we have fun. So, I don't know.
Have like a esports group or?
No, we're not from the gaming club actually. So,
Not from the gaming club.
yeah, we're just
You guys
friends.
are kind of like little fingers.
There is a gaming club, and it's for like video games, League of Legends, CS:GO, Dota2 is for like every game. We are not in the.
Yeah, with our coordinator is from the gaming club. He's the president for the gaming club. Yeah.
So did you guys find out about CSL through the president, or did you guys kind of do your own research? How did you get to us?
I know this tournament.
Well, it's Howram, but it's us. Yeah, we attended it in the last year, and this is our second time to join this. Yeah.
Okay, well, considering that you guys got to semifinals this time, what's different from last year?
We're much more experienced.
And teamwork.
Yeah.
We are more confident.
Yeah, no more fighting.
That's good.
There was a fight with each other.
We used to fight like all the time.
Nice, you guys resolved that fight on team. Okay, so you guys are going to be going up against a pretty big team tomorrow. So any opinions on your opponent?
Chill, keep calm, and easy win.
You think it's an easy win? Okay.
Yeah, it's not gonna be hard.
I think they're a very good team, but I think we're better.
All right. Okay, so we're going to just wrap this up before I end this. I'm just going to have you guys give some shout-outs or comments.
I love my group.
Oh, sweet.
Well, I don't know what to say actually. Yeah, it should be easy. We're confident.
I love my family.
I serve the victory.
All right.
I love everyone.
Okay, well, thank you guys so much for your time. Get some rest and good luck tomorrow, guys.
Thank you.
Hey guys, I'm Michelle with CSL, and I'm here with the returning champions, University of British Columbia. But I'm gonna have the players introduce themselves anyways.
Hi, I'm Wayne, Big Fan Series E.
Hi, I'm Chill, QIU.
Hi, I'm Kyle, I'm Jellybean Bob.
I'm Jeremy, I'm Cole. I am Kevin, Casey.
Okay, so you guys are the returning champions. How does it feel to be back in kind of like this land? Are you guys going for the title again?
No, I hope so. No, we think so.
I had faith in my team.
Great. So I heard you guys did a big roster change since last year. What was the big change and how did it impact your lineup and your...
Yeah, basically everyone, those three are all new to the roster.
All new. So what were their impacts to your team and your game play style?
Well, there's three cores, right? And then the support stayed the same from last year. I think the team plays really, really different this year. Better, yeah. That's the word. Yeah. So last year was pretty good though, let's be honest. But I think last year maybe was a little bit better coordinated actually. But
this year's individual talent is definitely way better than last year.
Hopefully that doesn't get in the way of your game this year. But any opinions on your opponents for the upcoming game?
Good luck to them.
Yeah.
I think they're pretty good.
Good luck to UC Davis and whoever we face in the finals.
So I think that's just going to wrap up our really quick interview. But before I completely close this off, any shout-outs?
The boys in the Jelly Bean Box.
Shout out to Cornell, you better be watching, because we're going to shit on UCB for you.
Shout out to our old teammates, Duncan, Ricky, Steven, yeah. And then shout out to NCIX, Wang Yu, Corsair, Asus, Gameforge, and that other one. There's one more, right?
That's it? Okay, well guys, thank you for your time. Good luck in your game next week.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Hey guys, I'm Michelle with CSL, and I'm here with UC Davis. So I'm going to have the players introduce themselves first. Your name, your gamer tag, and your title.
Oh, I'm Alex. I'm from UCD. My ID is PG.
And what position do you play?
I usually play carry or mid.
I'm from UC Davis, Lucky 57, and I usually play mid or carry.
My name's Tin. I'm from UC Davis, and my in-game name is Chocobo. I am officially the 5th support, but usually 7th.
I'm Jet from UC Davis. I usually play carrier mid when these guys aren't playing carrier mid, but right now I'm the manager.
I'm Alec from UC Davis. I play as Hope Gaming as our offlaner.
Hi, I'm Jackie. I'm from UC Davis. My ID is Biology. I'm player support.
Alright, so you guys are not newcomers to the CSL League, but you guys are new to the semifinals land. So how does it feel from being California to Toronto over here?
We love Toronto.
It feels good, you know, being out here, being flown out. Everything's paid for. It's great to see you guys support the scene like this, and you know, bring us all out here to play some interesting Dota.
So this is your first time being at the semifinals. Basically from last year or the years before, what changed? How did you guys get to where you are?
Yeah, we picked up 2 players.
Yeah. Newcomers.
EG and MZ Pig, who cannot be with us because he had transportation issues, but we wish him well.
So basically, this lovely person, how did he impact your team? What changed really?
He made us really, really, really good.
He definitely plays some heroes that some people don't play, or like we didn't incorporate last season. He also offers like a little bit more stability from our mid and carry because we have 2 very talented mid carries that switch. So being able to rely on both of them equally as opposed to rely on the one that we previously had is pretty important to us.
He also offers a lot of strategic advice. He's very good strategically and helps us with our drafting and our positioning and movement in game.
Awesome. So MVP to you, I guess. So basically, your first game is going to be against one of the powerhouses of CSL, UBC. Any opinions on that?
I think whoever wins the series wins the whole thing. So I think it's one of the tougher matches.
So everything's on the line there.
Yeah, we got this though. We got it. You know, last time AVGL, you know, we outplaced them by 2 places. We got first. They got 3 places. They got 4th.
Yeah, they got 4th.
So I think this will be very similar. Us going into first and then going into 4th.
You guys are super ambitious. Hopefully that follows through in your game. But before I conclude this interview with you guys, any last opinions or shout-outs for, you know, the LAN or your opponents?
MZ Pig.
Yeah, shout out to MZ Pig.
Couldn't be here with us, but he carried us all the way here.
Shout out to CSL for like helping this event and all the sponsors.
And
you know?
shout out to Tarask for supporting us throughout the season.
Yeah.
Always writing good articles.
Shout out to Kay. He always helped me play support.
All right. Well, thank you guys for your time. Definitely wishing you guys good luck for your next game. All right?
Thank you very much.
Hey everybody, this is Gorgon. Welcome back to the CSL. We just had our first semifinal wrap up, and you might notice a new face here on our panel. It is not Toffees, it is the analyst himself, Zingle, coming out with some notes from the last game. Why don't you break it down and tell me what exactly you saw go wrong there?
Absolutely. So in that first game, it all, I think, comes down to the draft there. For UConn, I think they did come out with a very strong draft in the sense that their cores counterpicked the other cores, even though they picked Tinker last pick. That's a matchup that generally goes well. Or no, sorry, CSU last picked
the Tinker.
But that's a matchup that generally goes well for UConn's OD.
Yep.
And their Lifestealer is countered by the Spirit Breaker. It's countered by, I believe, multiple heroes in that game. And the way that that went is I think that CSU actually had a favorable advantage in the two lanes, but UConn, it just came down to those support rotations. They understood that their draft goes well really late into the game, and even though their lanes should lose, those rotations from the Spirit Breaker and Ricky, I believe.
The Ricky was on CSU.
Sorry,
for both
it was
games, but
Rubik.
It was Rubik, yeah.
Those two rotations, that was the start of the end for them.
They hit those windows really well,
Right.
too, where the Tinker, like you said, that's not a favorable matchup up against OD, except for the first 2.5 minutes or so. And they didn't try to rotate on him too much during that period where he was strong. Instead, they waited for the OD to get up a couple Astral Imprisonment levels, to get one level of Arcane Orb, and that's when they hit him hard. With the Rubik rotations, with the Spirit Breaker rotations, I think you've got that right on.
At minute 6 and 8, they ganked mid. They got 3 kills the first time, one of them being the Tinker, 2 kills the second time, one of them being the Tinker, and Tinker really just needs to get quick bots.
Yeah.
And they could do that because they had an Ursa safe lane against the Centaur that can 1v1. They got their Slardar off to a really good start, who doesn't do well against a Lifestealer. But since he got off to a good start, he managed to hold his own. So they went from a pretty iffy early game to a strong early game and an outdraft. So.
Yeah, and part of that also comes down to just a little bit of the inexperience showing from Kilo. His positioning was not always right on point inside of that lane that a Crystal Maiden and Lifestealer should be able to harass out a Slardar and then force some rotation or force some attention. Or at least free up, for example, the Ricky to then go harass the bottom lane to help that Centaur out with his matchup. But they weren't really able to do that because the sometimes questionable positioning or overextension coming from Kilo actually ended up feeding a first blood despite the fact that he was in a 2-on-1 lane.
Right. And then for UConn, they really had control of the game, and CSU was on the hind foot, and they needed a desperation gank to come back, so they had Lifestealer infest Ricky and prep behind the Tinker to try to counter that next incoming gank, because obviously it was going to keep happening.
Yeah.
Once that happened, though, he went mid, the Lifestealer popped out, they both got hit by a Spirit Breaker charge, and it turned from there trying to gank the other team or set up a counter gank to the getting 5-man wiped, and that was, I think, what sealed the deal in the game.
Yeah, something else that we were seeing a lot from that game is Courtney One on the Lifestealer was often hitting Rage as he saw Village Fish coming in, but that's a bash that does go through Magic Immunity, and then his Magic Immunity was basically being wasted, a half to 2/3 of it was just being used in a period where nobody except the Spirit Breaker was nearby, and it wasn't preventing any sort of damage to him.
Exactly. So I think the story of Game 1 isn't necessarily that CSU played poorly. It's just that UConn adapted so well to their own strengths, but more CSU's weaknesses. And they performed way beyond my expectations.
And every little advantage that was given up by CSU was capitalized on. Like the fact that the Crystal Maiden was just a little out of position, bam, first blood. The fact that the Tinker is just a little outmatched by an OD, bam, moving in for 2 free kills. The fact that the Lifestealer is clearly just a little trigger happy on that Rage because he's playing from behind and needs to make sure that he's not being picked off to open up a fight. They played around that so well. They would charge into him to force that sort of reaction. There's not a lot of option that he had in Game 1. That was honestly just a massacre and probably impacted their mentality going into Game 2. What else happened in Game 2?
So yeah, speaking of Game 2 is the biggest thing, and you just screamed at the mic because they let Spirit Breaker through.
Right.
Spirit Breaker was the MVP of Game 1, and they let them first pick it again on UConn. And even though he didn't necessarily set the pace as hard, he was still a huge factor into Game 2.
Yeah. As Toffees and I were saying, too, at the end, you don't necessarily have to be getting the kills. If you're a good Spirit Breaker, just the fact that you're missing is enough to cause people to miss last hits. It's enough to force people back so that they're not taking advantage of lane equilibrium quite as effectively. And Village Fish, absolutely, even after the fact, CSU kind of walked up past the desk, and I asked them a couple questions, and they still felt like the Spirit Breaker was a problem, but we don't know how we could have, they did not feel like they should not have been able to handle it. It just caught them completely off guard. They're still a little wowed by it, I think, the fact that this one hero was able to create so much opportunity for his team.
Right. And another thing to go with game 2 is the draft for UConn. I'm not sure if it was due to the confidence after game 1, but they went a really greedy lineup of Spectre and Invoker, who both need that first 15 minutes to go very calmly for them, because they just want to farm. You get that Radiance in your set. For Invoker, you get the Midas, and I think he got a 16-minute Ags, which is a great timing. And and then they just scale impossible for CSU to keep up with.
Yeah, there was that one moment with the Invoker, probably around 11 to 13 minutes, where the Invoker really started to look like he was going to fall behind. He had gotten up a Midas, which meant that they had no defensive capability. The Midas is a standard pick on the Invoker to make sure that your levels are staying up, because he benefits from levels more than just about any other hero. But the Blink Dagger on the Tiny from Quan really looked like it was going to open up the game potentially. Unfortunately, a really great heads-up play from the Spectre. Instead of going into the Radiance, just went straight into a Blade Mail, and that burst damage just destroyed Tiny. He had no targets to move on.
Right. They could do that, I think, because they adapted so well. CSU adapted initially to the rotations and ganks that UConn brought in game 1 by going into that dual off lane sort of deal. They pretty much stole the idea from UConn and did the same exact thing back to them. But UConn reacted. They sacrificed their Spectre's greed, had him play that more space-making role, and let Invoker be the carry. And they reacted so well that game. They adapted. They didn't necessarily apply pressure to mid, and then they just abandoned their safe lane and reapplied pressure to mid because they realized how CSU was dealing with them.
Yeah, and part of the trouble, too, for CSU is that their drafts, their style, they pick a lot of very mid-game windowing, a lot of power spike at the 17-minute mark drafts, especially with their carries, the Lifestealer and the Troll Warlord, both those heroes that you need to get off to a very good start. Their starts were not great. The Corgi's last hitting under tower when he was under pressure did not hold up, and I think that was because, as you mentioned during the break to me, Kilo is a stand-in, and he's standing in Corgi 1 Kenobi's position. Why don't you talk a little about that?
As I heard from Quan himself, Corgi should have been their 5-role player, and he was throughout the season. And then we'll do the roster swap that we were talking about earlier in those interviews. He was their next best player after these swaps, so he's like, okay, I will carry because you guys aren't as confident on it.
Right.
And, he did well, I'm sure, compared to his friends or, compared to the other roster, roles shuffling. He did relatively well, but unfortunately, UConn, their natural talent and their teamwork, which was incredible, just, it picked CSU apart.
It's a lot to ask a player to jump into a completely different role, very close to the finals, against teams that, this team for UConn, not necessarily as practiced, but they are very practiced players. And then in addition to that, he or Quan was probably having to micromanage a bit from Kilo, who is probably the most inexperienced player at this tournament. I would really like to see, I think a couple of these guys are graduating, but I'm really interested to see how for next year CSU kind of comes out and asserts themselves through the fall bracket once they have some time to actually get comfortable with the roles, get comfortable with the roster. As we were talking about from the post-game scoreboard, the fact that on game 2, the Troll Warlord had about as much damage dealt as the Crystal Maiden, who was also not doing as much damage as you would want and not creating as much opportunity as you would want. That is absolutely damning in terms of either the team was not creating enough space for him to get his items, which was true, but also he was not able to move in aggressively enough on opportunities. And those two things really held them back.
And in CSU's defense, UConn also just played extremely well.
So
for the first part of the game, CSU was playing fantastically. They were holding off. They understood the timing from UConn had to they had to be ahead, and then if they got ahead, they would just stay ahead. And that fight in the bottom lane around 20 minutes by the tier 2, UConn played that perfectly with the push and pull. They baited, they lost their spear breaker, and then they faked back, and then they went in, and then they faked back and went, and they played that fight perfectly to force the mistakes out of CSU. So it was more just UConn, like I said last game, they exceeded the expectations.
One of the big things that they were doing with those pump fakes as well was that they were getting this Tidehunter who did not have any initiation items all game long. Tidehunter had to build for an auxiliary role, a position that you would normally expect to build that would be like the 4 spot, would get the mana boots and the mechanism. Sometimes the Tidehunter does do it, but usually the Tidehunter does it if you have another initiator. And they were planning on Quan to be that. But with the Blade Mail on the Spectre, Quan could no longer be that. They needed the Tide to be able to go in. So those pump fakes kind of drew the Tidehunter to the front of the fight because he was chasing after, and he ended up always a little bit too far ahead. And that's not on him. That is a completely an artificial manifestation because of UConn's great positioning.
Yeah. For that, like they have the Great Heroes 2 kind of controller, like Glimpse back on the Troll Warlord. They had the EMP to kind of force the separation of the team, and that's how they did it.
Yeah,
I think
absolutely.
that's like all there is to say about
So,
that game.
in terms of what you're looking at from UConn moving into the finals, are there any trends here that maybe their opponents should be picking up on? Anything that you're expecting to see as our analyst?
They are very, very scary in their early game coordination and activity. They remind me a lot of MVP style from back at TI when they just, I'm pretty sure they weren't really high seeded, but they stomped these higher teams by using that aggression with a late game fallback.
Yeah, it was really, really well executed. I'm interested to see how they managed to roll that momentum into the finals. That's about all we've got on this series, but we've got a lot more Dota coming for you guys all day long today. Next up, we're going to have the next semifinals, and then we're going to see UConn move up against the winner in the grand finals. So why don't you guys go ahead and tweet at us at CStarLeague to let us know what you want to hear us talking about at the ends of these games, what you want to hear from the players, and what questions you guys basically have about the styles and the way that the games are falling together. Once again, that's at CStarLeague. Thanks again for tuning in, and we'll be back with another segment here very shortly.